Most people will never tell you this out loud because it threatens the stories they tell themselves to feel comfortable. But if you have ever wondered why some younger women seem drawn to certain older men in a way that feels effortless, almost inevitable, then you are standing at the edge of a truth that changes how you see attraction forever. This is not about money, and it's not about age, and it's definitely not about manipulation. In fact, if you are looking for tricks or shortcuts, this conversation will disappoint you. What you are about to hear is far more confronting than that. Because the real reason this dynamic exists has nothing to do with what a man has, and everything to do with who he has become. And once you understand this, you won't be able to unsee it in your own life, in your relationships, or in the people around you. You'll start noticing why some men command attention without asking for it, while others beg for validation and still feel invisible. You'll understand why excitement fades quickly, but calm confidence lingers. And you'll see why attraction is not created by trying harder, but by being more grounded. This is the kind of truth that makes people uncomfortable because it forces responsibility back onto the individual. It removes excuses. It strips away surface-level explanations and asks a deeper question: what emotional experience do you offer when someone is around you? Not what you promise, not what you post, not what you say you'll become, but what it actually feels like to sit across from you. If you stay until the end, you won't just understand why this attraction exists, you'll understand what separates men who are chosen from men who are merely noticed. And once you see that difference clearly, you can never go back to pretending it doesn't matter. Let's start by dismantling the biggest lie people tell themselves about attraction. Younger women do not choose older men because of age, money, or social power. Those explanations are convenient because they allow people to avoid looking inward. The real reason sits much deeper, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Younger women are drawn to emotional certainty, not chronology. They are responding to how a man makes them feel in his presence, not the number of years he has lived. Emotional certainty means this: when a woman is around a man, her nervous system relaxes instead of staying on high alert. She doesn't feel the need to manage his emotions, reassure his insecurities, or guess where she stands. There is a sense of groundedness, of predictability without boredom. In a world where many interactions feel chaotic, rushed, or performative, this kind of calm stands out immediately. It feels rare because it is rare. Most younger men are still negotiating their identity. They are figuring out who they are, what they stand for, and how they want to be seen. There is nothing wrong with that, but it often shows up as emotional inconsistency. One day they are confident, the next day they are withdrawn. One moment they want closeness, the next they pull away. That push and pull creates excitement at first, but excitement without safety quickly turns into anxiety. Attraction cannot survive long in an environment where the nervous system feels unsettled. Older men who have done the inner work move differently. They are not trying to impress, prove, or posture. They don't rush intimacy because they are not afraid of being alone. They don't panic when a woman takes space because they are not using her attention as emotional fuel. This emotional steadiness communicates something powerful without words: I'm okay within myself. And when a woman senses that, she feels safer opening up. Psychological safety is one of the most misunderstood forces in attraction. People think safety kills desire, that it leads to boredom or complacency. That's only true when safety is confused with passivity. True emotional safety is not dull, it is grounding. It allows desire to deepen instead of burning out. When a woman feels emotionally safe, she is free to be curious, playful, and vulnerable. She doesn't have to stay guarded. And vulnerability is where real intimacy begins. Younger women today are especially sensitive to this because many of them have been emotionally overworked. They have had to be strong too early. They have been in situations where they carried the emotional load, explained their feelings repeatedly, or dealt with men who reacted defensively instead of listening. Over time, that creates fatigue. So when they encounter a man who listens without interrupting, who doesn't take everything personally, who can stay present without becoming overwhelmed, it feels like relief. And relief is deeply attractive. An older man who has emotional certainty does not confuse intensity with connection. He understands that real closeness is built slowly through consistency. His words and actions align. He doesn't promise what he can't deliver. He doesn't say one thing and do another. This congruence creates trust, and trust allows attraction to move from the surface into something more meaningful. There is also a philosophical element here that many people miss. Emotional certainty comes from accepting reality rather than fighting it. Men who have lived longer and reflected on their experiences often understand that life includes loss, disappointment, and unpredictability. Because they have faced these truths, they are less likely to project their fears onto relationships. They don't expect a woman to complete them or rescue them from their discomfort. That acceptance makes them emotionally lighter to be around. When a woman feels that she is not being used to fill a void, she experiences freedom. She is not responsible for regulating someone else's self-worth. She can choose the relationship rather than feeling trapped in it. Choice is essential for desire. The moment a woman feels needed in a way that drains her, attraction begins to fade. Emotional certainty preserves choice, and choice preserves desire. It's important to understand that this has nothing to do with emotional suppression. Emotional certainty is not emotional numbness. It is the ability to feel deeply without being ruled by those feelings. An older man who has developed this capacity can experience desire, disappointment, and affection without losing his center. He doesn't lash out when hurt. He doesn't withdraw completely when things don't go his way. He responds instead of reacting. That distinction alone sets him apart. Younger women notice this immediately, even if they can't articulate it. They sense that conversations feel easier, that disagreements don't escalate unnecessarily, that silence doesn't feel threatening. These small moments accumulate and form a powerful impression. This man feels safe to be real with. And once a woman feels she can be real with someone, attraction moves beyond the superficial. This is why age gaps often confuse outsiders. They look for external explanations and miss the internal dynamics. The attraction is not to experience, but to integration. It's not about what the man has done, but what he has learned. Emotional certainty is the byproduct of self-awareness, accountability, and reflection. It cannot be faked for long, and it cannot be taught through tricks or techniques. And here is the uncomfortable part that requires honesty. Age alone does not guarantee emotional certainty. Some men grow older without growing wiser. They carry unresolved resentment, rigidity, or fear into every interaction. That kind of emotional energy repels rather than attracts. The men younger women choose are not simply older, they are emotionally resolved. They have made peace with themselves. When you understand this, the dynamic becomes clear. Younger women are not rejecting younger men. They are responding to emotional environments. They are choosing what feels stabilizing rather than destabilizing, calm rather than chaos, presence rather than performance. The invitation here is not to wait for time to pass. It is to do the work now. Emotional certainty is available to any man willing to look inward, take responsibility for his emotional state, and stop outsourcing his self-worth. Attraction follows those who are grounded in themselves, regardless of age. And if there is one thought to leave with, it is this: when you become emotionally certain, you don't chase attention, you attract trust, and trust quietly becomes desire. Now let's talk about something even more uncomfortable, because this is where attraction either quietly grows or completely dies. Self-mastery is far more attractive than ambition, status, or validation seeking. And most people misunderstand this so deeply that they spend years building the wrong things, wondering why connection still feels out of reach. Ambition is visible, it's loud, it announces itself. It says, look at what I'm chasing, look at what I'm becoming. Self-mastery is quieter. It doesn't ask for attention. It shows itself in how a man handles frustration, rejection, temptation, and power. Younger women are not as impressed by a man's goals as they are by how he manages himself when things don't go his way. Validation seeking is one of the biggest attraction killers, and it often hides behind confidence. A man can look successful, driven, and socially admired, yet still be deeply dependent on approval. He needs praise to feel valuable. He needs admiration to feel secure. And unconsciously, the people around him can feel that hunger. It creates pressure. It creates emotional imbalance. And de-imbalance eventually breeds resistance. Self-mastery, on the other hand, communicates inner authority. A man who has mastered himself does not need constant reassurance. He doesn't fish for compliments. He doesn't inflate his achievements to feel important. He knows who he is, and that knowing creates a sense of emotional gravity. People lean toward what feels solid. Younger women are especially sensitive to this because they are often navigating a world full of performance. Social media has trained everyone to curate, impress, and compete. Many men are still trying to be chosen by appearing impressive rather than by being grounded. But attraction doesn't respond to performance for long. It responds to congruence. Self-mastery shows up in restraint, in knowing when not to speak, in not reacting immediately, in not needing to win every conversation. A man who has mastered himself does not confuse dominance with control. He doesn't need to overpower or outtalk others to feel respected. His presence alone sets a tone, and that tone is felt more than it is explained. One of the most powerful markers of self-mastery is emotional discipline. This does not mean suppressing emotion. It means understanding it, regulating it, and taking responsibility for it. A man who can feel anger without becoming aggressive, desire without becoming desperate, disappointment without becoming bitter is rare, and rarity creates value. Many younger men, through no fault of their own, are still learning this. They are still externalizing their emotions. They blame circumstances, people, or partners for how they feel. They want the world to adjust to their inner state. Self-mastery reverses this dynamic. It says, "My inner world is my responsibility." That mindset alone shifts how others relate to you. Younger women notice when a man does not offload his emotional weight onto them. They notice when they are not expected to soothe his insecurities, manage his moods, or constantly reassure his worth. That absence of emotional labor feels freeing, and freedom is deeply attractive. Self-mastery also reveals itself in boundaries. A man who knows himself knows what he will accept and what he will walk away from. He does not bend his values to be liked. He does not tolerate disrespect for the sake of attention. This creates respect without force. Because boundaries signal self-respect, and self-respect is contagious. Contrast this with validation-seeking behavior. A man who needs approval will overextend. He will say yes when he means no. He will tolerate behavior that erodes his dignity because he is afraid of being alone. And paradoxically, the more he tries to secure connection through accommodation, the less attractive he becomes. Attraction cannot coexist with self-abandonment. Older men who have developed self-mastery have usually learned this lesson the hard way. They have seen what happens when they betray themselves for acceptance. They have felt the emptiness of applause that does not align with integrity, and through that experience, they begin to value internal alignment over external validation. This is where philosophy quietly enters the picture. Self-mastery is rooted in the understanding that you cannot control others, only yourself. When a man accepts this fully, he stops trying to manipulate outcomes. He focuses on being principled rather than impressive, and that shift changes everything. Younger women are drawn to men who are not trying to extract something from them. Not validation, not ego reinforcement, not identity confirmation. A man who has mastered himself enjoys connection without needing it to define him. That emotional independence creates space for genuine desire to emerge. There is also something deeply attractive about a man who can delay gratification. Self-mastery includes sexual discipline, not repression, but discernment. A man who does not rush intimacy, who is comfortable with tension, who does not treat attraction like something to be consumed immediately, creates anticipation. He signals that he values depth over impulse, and anticipation is one of the most underrated components of attraction. Many people confuse self-mastery with rigidity. In reality, it creates flexibility. When you are not ruled by impulse, you can adapt without losing yourself. You can listen without becoming defensive. You can disagree without becoming hostile. That emotional elasticity makes interactions feel mature and grow undid. Younger women often describe this without using these words. They say things like, he feels stable, or I don't feel anxious around him, or he doesn't get threatened easily. What they are responding to is a nervous system that is not reactive. A man who has mastered himself does not turn small issues into emotional emergencies, and that calm is contagious. Here's the critical truth. Self-mastery cannot be faked. It reveals itself over time in moments of stress, rejection, or uncertainty. That is why it carries so much weight. It is earned, not performed. And when a woman senses that a man is internally regulated, she instinctively trusts his leadership, not because he demands it, but because he embodies it. This is not about being perfect. It is about being accountable. A self-mastered man can admit mistakes without collapsing into shame. He can apologize without feeling diminished. That humility strengthens attraction rather than weakening it, because it shows inner security. If there is one reason self-mastery outperforms ambition, it is this. Ambition is about where you are going, but self-mastery is about who you are while you get there. And people don't fall in love with goals. They connect with character. The invitation here is simple but demanding. Stop asking how to be more impressive and start asking how to be more integrated. Stop chasing validation and start cultivating self-respect. When you master yourself, you stop performing for approval and you start attracting connection naturally. And the thought to leave with is this: when you no longer need to be validated, you become undeniable, because the strongest form of power is self-command. Now we move into a truth that challenges almost everything people have been taught about attraction. Depth and emotional presence consistently outperform status, money, and surface-level confidence. And the reason this is difficult for many to accept is because depth cannot be displayed, advertised, or rushed. It is felt quietly. Over time, status is visible, money is measurable, confidence can be performed, but emotional presence requires something far more demanding: attention without agenda. When a man is emotionally present, he is not planning his next line while someone else is speaking. He is not listening to respond or to impress. He is listening to understand. And in a world of constant distraction, that alone feels extraordinary. Younger women are especially responsive to this because they are often surrounded by noise, endless opinions, constant stimulation, and relationships that feel more like transactions than connections. Many interactions are shaped by what someone wants rather than who someone is. So when a man offers presence without extraction, it creates a psychological shift. She feels met rather than managed. Emotional presence is the ability to stay engaged without becoming overwhelmed. It means being attentive without being intrusive. A man who has this quality can sit with discomfort without rushing to fix it. He can allow silence without filling it out of anxiety. He can hold emotional space without turning the focus back to himself. These behaviors communicate maturity more powerfully than any external achievement. Depth is built through lived experience and reflection. It comes from having faced disappointment and asked, "What is this teaching me?" rather than, "Who can I blame?" Men who have developed depth are less reactive because they understand that emotions are signals, not commands. They don't need to dominate conversations to feel relevant. They don't dismiss feelings they don't immediately understand. That emotional literacy creates trust. Many younger men have not yet had the opportunity or incentive to cultivate this depth. Their confidence often rests on performance, validation, or momentum, but performance-based confidence is fragile. It requires constant reinforcement. Emotional presence, by contrast, is stable. It does not depend on outcomes. It comes from being grounded in one's inner world. Younger women feel this difference viscerally. They notice when a man doesn't flinch at vulnerability, when he doesn't change the subject because emotions make him uncomfortable, when he doesn't minimize or intellectualize feelings to maintain control. That steadiness allows her to lower her guard, and when a woman lowers her guard, attraction deepens. Depth also shows up in the way a man speaks about his past. A man with emotional presence does not weaponize his experiences to gain sympathy, nor does he erase them to appear unaffected. He acknowledges his history without being defined by it. That balanced self-awareness signals integration. It says, I have lived, I have learned, and I am not stuck. This is profoundly attractive because it communicates resilience without bitterness. Many people carry unresolved wounds that leak into their relationships as defensiveness, cynicism, or emotional unavailability. Depth is the opposite of that. It is the capacity to remain open even after disappointment. And openness, when paired with boundaries, is magnetic. Younger women are not looking for men who have never been hurt. They are looking for men who have been hurt and did not harden. Emotional presence tells her that connection will not require self-erasure, that her feelings will not be treated as inconveniences, that she will not have to fight to be heard. These are not small things, they are foundational. There is also a philosophical dimension to depth that often goes unnoticed. Depth reflects an acceptance of complexity. Life is not simple, and people are not one-dimensional. A man who understands this does not reduce a woman to a role, a fantasy, or a function. He sees her as a full human being with contradictions and layers. That kind of recognition is rare, and rarity intensifies attraction. Status and money can create access, but they cannot create connection. Surface. Confidence can initiate interest, but it cannot sustain intimacy. Emotional presence is what allows attraction to evolve into something enduring. It is what turns chemistry into attachment and attachment into choice. This is why some men are admired from a distance but not chosen up close. They look impressive, but they feel unavailable. They command attention, but not trust. And trust is what allows desire to relax rather than stay vigilant. A man with depth does not rush to define the relationship because he understands that connection unfolds. He is patient without being passive. He is interested without being intrusive. That balance creates a sense of safety that allows attraction to grow organically. Younger women often articulate this in subtle ways. They say things like, I feel calm with him, or I can be myself around him, or he really sees me. These statements are not about status or confidence. They are about presence. They reflect a nervous system that feels regulated rather than stimulated. Emotional presence also changes how conflict is handled. A man with depth does not turn disagreement into a power struggle. He does not withdraw affection as punishment. He stays engaged without escalating. That reliability builds emotional security, which paradoxically makes desire stronger rather than weaker. And it's important to say this clearly. Emotional presence is not about being endlessly agreeable or emotionally available at all times. It includes discernment. It includes knowing when to step back, when to speak, and when to let silence do the work. Depth creates nuance, not enmeshment. This is why emotional presence cannot be learned from scripts or tactics. It is the result of self-awareness, reflection, and a willingness to confront one's inner world. It requires slowing down in a culture that rewards speed. And those who do this work stand out immediately. The men younger women choose are often not the loudest in the room. They are the most attuned. They do not dominate attention, they anchor it. Their presence feels steady rather than performative, and that steadiness invites intimacy. The invitation here is to stop trying to be impressive and start being attentive, to trade surface confidence for emotional literacy, to value depth over display, because attraction does not deepen through what you show, but through what you can hold. And the thought to leave with is this: when you offer emotional presence instead of performance, you stop chasing desire and start creating connection that chooses you back. Now we arrive at the quiet force that ties everything together. Purpose creates authority. An authority that is quiet is the most compelling kind there is, not because it demands attention, but because it doesn't need it. Younger women are not drawn to men who announce their importance. They are drawn to men whose lives already have direction, meaning, and internal order. Purpose is often confused with ambition, but they are not the same. Ambition is about achievement and comparison. It asks, how far can I go? Purpose asks a different question, why do I exist as I do? A man driven purely by ambition is always looking ahead, often restless, sometimes anxious. A man grounded in purpose is rooted. He moves forward, but he is not scattered. His sense of self does not rise and fall with external success. This groundedness is what creates quiet authority. Authority here does not mean control or dominance. It means inner coherence. When a man knows what matters to him, his decisions align. His boundaries are clear. His time is respected because he respects it himself. This consistency creates trust without force. People feel it before they understand it. Younger women are acutely sensitive to this because many of them live in a world of uncertainty. Careers are unstable. Social expectations are contradictory. Relationships are often ambiguous. In that environment, a man who is anchored in purpose feels like solid ground, not because he promises certainty about the future, but because he is certain about himself. Quiet authority shows up in small moments, in how a man responds rather than reacts, in how he does not rush to explain himself, in how he can say no without guilt and yes without overcommitting. These behaviors communicate self-trust, and self-trust is contagious. A man with purpose does not center his life around being chosen. His life already has meaning. A woman senses this immediately. She feels invited into a world, not asked to become the world. That distinction is crucial. Desire cannot grow where pressure exists. Purpose removes pressure because it decentralizes validation. This is why younger women often lose attraction to men who make them the focal point of their existence too quickly. What initially feels flattering soon feels heavy. A man without purpose unconsciously asks a woman to provide direction, motivation, and identity. That emotional burden erodes attraction. A man with purpose carries his own weight. There is also a philosophical calm that comes with purpose. A man who knows why he lives as he does is less shaken by uncertainty. He understands that not everything needs immediate resolution. He allows life to unfold. This patience is not passivity, it is confidence in process. And that confidence feels safe. Quiet authority is deeply linked to restraint. A man with purpose does not need to assert himself constantly. He does not argue for the sake of being right. He chooses his battles carefully. This selectiveness creates gravity. When he speaks, it matters because he doesn't speak to fill space. Younger women often interpret this as maturity, but it is more than that. It is alignment. A man whose values, actions, and intentions are aligned creates a sense of order in interactions. There is less confusion, less mixed messaging, less emotional turbulence. And order is attractive because it allows the nervous system to relax. Purpose also shapes how a man relates to relationships themselves. He does not see connection as an escape from emptiness. He sees it as a complement to a full life. This changes everything. He is present without being possessive. He is invested without being controlling. He desires without clinging. That balance is rare. Many people think authority comes from dominance, from being louder or more assertive. In reality, dominance often masks insecurity. Quiet authority comes from self-acceptance. A man who has made peace with his limitations and strengths does not need to compete for relevance. He knows his place, and that knowing creates stability. Younger women feel this stability as emotional leadership. Not leadership in the sense of command, but in the sense of direction. A man with purpose knows where he is going, even if the path is still unfolding. He does not outsource decisions. He does not drift aimlessly. That directionality is reassuring. There is also an ethical dimension here. Purpose often involves contribution beyond the self. A man who lives for something larger than his own gratification radiates meaning. Whether it is his work, his principles, or his commitment to growth, that orientation outward creates depth, and depth sustains attraction long after novelty fades. This is why flashy confidence fades quickly. It has no root system. Purpose is rooted. It grows slowly, but it lasts. Younger women who choose older men often sense this longevity. They are not just choosing a person, they are choosing a way of being. Quiet authority also means a man is not afraid of solitude. He uses time alone to refine his thinking, strengthen his values, and reconnect with his purpose. This comfort with solitude translates into healthier relationships. He does not use connection to avoid himself. He uses it to share himself. When a woman senses that a man's life would remain meaningful even without her, she feels free to choose him rather than obligated to stay. And choice is the foundation of genuine desire. Obligation breeds resentment. Purpose preserves freedom. It's important to say this clearly. Purpose is not something you declare. It is something you live. It is reflected in how you spend your time, how you treat others, and how you respond to setbacks. It is tested under pressure, and when it holds, it becomes unmistakable. The men who embody quiet authority do not try to lead relationships through control. They lead through example. Their calm sets the tone. Their integrity creates trust. Their purpose creates direction, and none of this needs to be explained. The invitation here is not to impress anyone with grand visions. It is to ask yourself difficult questions. What matters enough to organize your life around? What values are non-negotiable? What kind of man are you becoming when no one is watching? These answers shape purpose, and purpose shapes presence. And the thought to leave with is this: when your life has meaning beyond being chosen, your presence becomes an invitation rather than a request. And that quiet authority is what makes attraction endure.